What's up YouTube, it's Pico.Blurred back again with another video. I got barber school starting on Thursday, the 15th is my first day of class, so I had to make sure that I look fresh. So I went ahead and cut my hair. I got a tutorial for you guys right now. Stay tuned to watch the rest of the tutorial on how to cut your own hair at home and get you ready for everything you need to take care of. Alright, so as you can see, my hair is pretty grown out. Way longer than I usually like to have it on the sides. I don't touch the top in this haircut. I'm just going to be focusing on the fade on the sides. So I'm taking my number 4 guard and I'm just going to clear out all the bulk on the sides and the back. Now I use the number 4 because it makes doing your fade way more simple. Instead of thinking about being scared to fade into long hair, you're setting yourself up with a number 4 because you know that you can fade easily into a number 4 if you use your guard system right. So it's just making it a bit simpler than freaking out and trying to figure out how to fade into long hair. And you guys can see I'm going off of the shape of my head. I don't want to round into the top of my head, so I'm going off the shape and I'm keeping it square, keeping bulk around towards the top so it can blend into the top. And this is going to be a bald fade, so I'm using my trimmers to set in my initial guideline, and I'm going to bald everything out under that guideline, making sure everything is pretty close to shave or bald. It just makes the haircut last longer, and I just like the bald fades. Personally, it's my favorite type of haircut, so that's what I'm doing. But you guys can see that I'm kind of dropping it towards the back. I think that the drop fade suits my head shape better because the back of my head's pretty flat, so I like to keep a lot of bulk above my occipital bone in the back. It just helps to create more of a round shape, and my head won't look so flat back there, so that's why I drop it in the back. You kind of want to shape your fades and all your guidelines to suit your client's head shape. Alright, so when you're done clearing out all that bulk on your bald guideline, you're going to set in your first guideline, and you're going to do that with your clipper lever all the way open, and you're just going to go over that multiple times to make sure that it is all in that open lever length, and you're setting it about a finger's width, just so you have room to blend it out. If you put in this guideline too small, you're not going to have room to fade, so you want to stretch it out a bit just so you can get that fade going. And after you're done putting it in, that's when it's time to fade it out. So I'm starting at the top of that guideline with my lever all the way open, and then as I go down, I'm closing the lever little by little until that guideline disappears. Now with my clipper, I have notches, so basically when I'm fading, I close every single notch until I'm at the bottom of my guideline, when my clipper should be all the way closed. If you have a different type of clipper that doesn't have these notches, just close it little by little until you're at the bottom, and it should be all the way closed. It's easier with the notches, but you can do it with a free floating lever. And so when I'm doing this fading step, I'm really using a lot of the corner of the blade. That's what you want to use when you're fading out. So you use the whole blade to put in your guideline, and then you're using mostly corners because that's going to hit every hair, and that's what gives you that gradient fade effect. You're basically blending out at that point. So you use the corners to blend, use the full blade to clear out bulk. That's kind of the easiest and simplest way I can explain it to you. But again, you just want to take your time on this step, going in sections. So usually when I'm doing my fade steps, I'm going in small sections, so it's easier for me to blend out instead of trying to blend out the whole panel in one pass. So I go about an inch section, I'll fade that out, and then I move on to another inch section and I fade that out. Always going open to close. So open at the top and then closing it little by little as I go down to blend those lines out. And it is a bit difficult to do this on yourself. It takes loads of practice, but you will get better over time, and it's just picking up little things as you experiment with cutting your own hair. It does not come easy, especially using both of your hands. Obviously I have my mirror in one hand, and then I'm using my clipper in one hand, and it's easier for me on my left side to use my left hand. You'll see some people use their dominant hand all the way around their head, but it's just easier for me to pick out the spots on the left side of my head if I switch hands. You don't have to do it that way, but that's just what makes it easier for me to blend out that left side. And guys, if you guys can see the TV in the background, drop a comment and let me know what show you think this is. I had this on. I didn't realize it was going to be in the camera, but I love this show. I just recently started watching it because I never seen it before fully, so I'm watching the whole series. But drop in the comments if you know what show this is. But as you guys can see, as we're going along this fade, the lines are coming out and it's starting to look gradient already, just with that first fade step. And next it's time for our second guideline. So I take my 1.5 guard with the lever closed, and again I'm going about a finger's length up, really stretching out that guideline so I have space to get a good gradient blend. Going over multiple times to make sure that everything is at that 1.5 length to set me up for my fade. And now it's time to blend that out. So I take my half guard with the lever open again. Always start with your lever open because it's the safe option. You can take off more hair, but you can't put hair back on. So I'm starting with my lever open at the top of that guideline, and then as I go down, I'm closing the lever notch by notch, little by little, until that line is blended out. Using my corners, really stressing using the corners of the blade so you can not create more lines and then have to push this fade up higher. Taking my time, getting that stuff faded out. I like to put in my guideline and then immediately fade it out before I move on to my next steps. That's just the way that I like to fade. You'll see other people set in all their guidelines and then fade those guidelines out, but I like to put in my guidelines and then immediately fade it out just so I don't have to worry about that step later on. I have the guards in my hands already, so I just go ahead and knock that out as I'm there. Look at that blend coming together, man. It's looking good, especially on yourself. If I could clone myself and cut my own hair, man, I wish I could, because that would make this a whole lot easier. But I make sure I get it done. I make sure that it's good enough for me. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not ever going to be perfect, but I just want it to look good as well as I can do it. And I've been doing it for the longest time, so I'm used to cutting my own hair. And I actually did this haircut in about 30 minutes. It used to take me hours to do my own haircuts, but I've done it so long that I've gotten it down to 30 minutes, which is pretty insane. But again, you guys see me going little by little. I'm not taking the whole left side of my head and just fading everything out. I'm taking it step by step so I can make sure that this blend is looking right. And it doesn't have to be perfect right now because we're going to go in later on after we've done all of our guidelines and fading it out. We're going to come back in and detail it anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. After you're done blending all those guidelines out, it's time to start clearing out that bulk and blending it into the fade at the bottom. And I like to start at the top and blend down when I do this. So I'm using my number 2 guard all the way open and just flicking into that bulk up top. I'm flicking out. I'm not digging in too much. I'm still trying to keep that shape and keep that darkness. So I'm kind of flicking out. And when I use my number 2 guard, anything above the two and above, you can kind of skip all of the notches. So I start open and then I come directly under that closed. You don't have to mess around with going little by little. The closed clipper should blend in straight to the open clipper with these guards. So I'm going in and I'm basically just softening up that bulk underneath. So when I come in below with my 1.5 guard again, it's easier to start blending that out into the bulk. And again, I'm using a lot of the corners because I don't want to take off too much bulk. I just want to lessen the weight and and start to blend that out. So here I have my 1.5 guard open again, and this is where I'm closing it little by little until I see any lines of demarcation start to disappear and really start to blend into that fade at the bottom. You guys can see that this haircut is coming together now, especially when we clear out most of that bulk sticking over the sides. We want to make sure that it's all uniform, that it has a nice flow to it. Nice flow, nice blend going into the bulk up top. It has a nice shape. It's not too bulky and overhanging over the sides. And the reason I'm just doing the fade on the sides is because I like the length that I have up top right now. And obviously I can't do shear work on myself. If I was going to cut the top, it would have to be using a clipper guard. And I don't want to go short right now. So I'm keeping the length, I'm keeping the comb over. So we're just attacking the fade on the sides. And so right here, I did all of my fade steps pretty much. So I'm going back in and I'm really detailing my work. So I'm using my 1.5 guard right now, just hitting any dark spots between the 1.5 and the number 2 guard. And then I drop down to my half guard again. And again, I'm just trying to look for any dark spots that I see that's not looking right in my blend. I'm hitting all the dark spots. I'm just retracing my steps, going over my steps again in case I see any dark spots or anything that needs to be blended a little bit better. I'm just going through my steps and really bringing this fade to the next level. That's what's going to set you apart and your haircuts apart from every other barber, is if you go back in, you detail your work, and you make sure that the fade is looking as best as it can. It would have been fine if I just left it that way, and that would have been a normal haircut, but we want to give premium haircuts. So that's why I'm going back, I'm detailing, and I'm making sure that it looks A1. And really, when you're detailing, you're using a lot of the corner because you don't want to end up pushing this fade higher than it is. You don't want to set in any other guidelines that then you have to take out and push the fade higher, because we already have the fade where we want it. We're just looking to make it look more gradient and look more uniform. And I hope you guys can follow this along, and it makes it a little bit easier for you to cut your own hair. I know sometimes it's hard to get into the shop and go get a haircut. Not all of us have the amount of time to be able to do that. So if you can get a decent blend at home, and you were having trouble because you didn't really know what you were doing, hopefully this makes it a whole lot simpler for you to be able to get a good blend. Now, it might not come out as gradient as my haircut because I have all my stuff set perfectly. I have it gapped and everything, so it's a bit easier for me to take out my guidelines. But if you just follow the steps, it should be easy for you to get a decent blend. And now it's time to edge up my C-cups. I'm just taking my trimmer and I start at the top of my C-cup. I set in kind of a guideline, and then I move to the bottom and set another guideline, and then I meet those in the middle. And I'm not really pushing into my hair, I'm just clearing the overhang that's hanging over my edge up. I'm still gonna get it as sharp as possible and keep it as dark as possible, just so I can see a nice clean circular line on the edge up. You guys see I'm using my corners and I'm kind of following that curved shape, just making sure that it's extra sharp. It's really going to make your fade pop when you put in that extra layer of detail. And you guys can see that haircut is looking super blurry, and it's just gonna pop even more when I put that edge up in, making sure that it's really sharp. But I'm gonna go ahead and style it really quick how I want it to lay. And this is how I started with my hair. It was just looking bulky and not good. And this is the finished product, looking super gradient, super good for my style. And I think it really turned out really good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Try this. If you haven't already, it'll make it easier for you to get your haircuts together. Go check out my other tutorials if you haven't already. But it's your boy Pico.Blurred. I'll catch you guys on the next one.